Welcome to the channel. In this hobby video we are going to be speed painting the new Deathrattle Barrow guard. I did a lot of experimentation to try and get a formula I was happy with to paint these little fellas, and I practiced on these little fellas, Deathrattle skeletons. So this is what they're going to look like by the end of it, give or take. And the process is designed to be as quick as possible. I want to be able to bash out a unit of 10 in something around 4 or 5 hours, which maybe it's speedy for me. May not be speedy in some contexts, but it is definitely speedy for me. I want to be able to rattle through this army and produce it quite quickly. So what I am going to do is I'm going through. This is going to be a stage by stage. I'm not going to show you the actual brush strokes, just each step and what I do. The first stage, these have been sprayed with lead belcher. Then with a little bit of PVA glue, I have glued some modelling sand to the base and then painted it with a watered down Abaddon black. The primary reason for that having already been done is speed, because that takes a fair while to dry. So I've done that ahead of time I'm making this video. The first thing I'm going to do is normally the last thing I do. I'm going to paint the base. And that is a series of greys dry brushed up from the black and then painting around the rim. So it's Mechanica Standard Grey dry brush, Dawnstone, Administratum Grey, and then Skaven Blight Dinge on the rim. Right, they're all based bar the tufts, which I will do very last. Now, the reason for doing this is twofold, threefold, some number of folds. The premise of this technique is to be able to shade the whole model in one go. And when I did the bases last, it created an awful lot of mess over bits I'd already shaded, and I had to do a lot of rework. So what I've resolved to do is the basing first, so that I can then touch up the metal before I shade. And the bits of cloth that I've caught, it won't matter because I'm going to paint over those as well. So speaking of which, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use Wraithbone to fill in all the skeletal bits, which includes the back of these panels. Now I will inevitably go over onto the metal with them. The quickest way around that for me is to go over, take less care with the Wraithbone, but be quicker, and then just neaten up with lead belcher before I apply the shade. So it's Wraithbone on all the skeletal parts, then lead belcher. All the gold bits, so these medallions, some of the wings, etc., are going to get picked out in Balthazar. Then the whole model is getting a coat of skeleton horde. Then we go to some of the details. So I've painted on the Wraithbone, and I have done it quick and dirty. So you can see from the arm here, I've gone over the straps, I've gone over the haft of the weapon, and in some cases, some parts, can't focus that. Some parts I've gone onto the metal plates. Now, I don't need to touch up the straps because they're being painted later. I don't need to touch up the haft of the weapon for the same reason. All I need to do is go around and neaten up the... neaten up the metal plates wherever I've gone over on the metal. So you can see there's a good example on the back leg where I just need to go down that line on the right hand side. And possibly round the mask a touch. Where are we? Will you focus on that? Yeah, if I've clipped the metal in any parts. What was a little bit of face missing there? Needs to, yeah, you can see I've got some bone on the nose guard. And also I've got some nose guard on the bone. I need to sort that out. There's a little bit there. So basically I've just got to go around with the lead belcher and just neaten up a bit. Oh, and and also there's the feet. So the feet that got heavily dry brushed when I did the base, but this way I only have to paint the feet once. The dry brushing is what I am going to touch up. So here we are after the tidying up. I have also painted the medallions on the loincloth and the wings on the helm in Balthazar gold. And there's a couple of little bits here and there. There's a sort of metal ring on the scroll pouch, doing that as well. Oh, come on, focus. You can see how I've tidied up the armor pieces, and that looks broadly doable now. Now, there's quite a bit of trim that I could have done in Balthazar or a similar colour, but the way I'm going to make that pop is with corrosion effects of various sorts and a little bit of light highlighting later, so I don't feel the need to pull those out individually, because I have different ways of doing that, which are hopefully quicker. Now, the next step is to paint the entire model from head top to bottom in Skeleton Horde. I say the entire model. I won't paint the weapon, and I won't paint the haft of the weapon, and I won't paint the cloth. I'm not going to go out of my way to avoid them, because that takes time, but I'm not going to deliberately make sure I cover them. I will make sure the entire rest of the model is painted instead. If I go over onto them, doesn't matter, which makes it quicker to do. Okay, so I've now applied the Skeleton Horde, and they are now looking, well, at the moment they're looking a bit more golden than aged, but we will deal with that in the weathering. It doesn't really show on camera, but in IRL, they look kind of like Stormcasts from a distance, but you can see we've got the armour's taken a lot of that pigment, as well as the bone looking all skeletal, which is nice. Right, the next stage are the shields and the banners. Now, I want to do the shields next, because if you look at my test paint, I want to do weathering on top of the shield. Now, there's only one guy with a shield, and that's the standard bearer, because I've built this unit with halberds rather than sword and board. So there's less of that step in this one. So the way ironically on the same mini, I want to do the banner as well. It's the same formula for both. So I'm going to paint over with grey cere, a couple of thin coats. Then it's going to get a thin layer of contrast Briar Queen Chill, and especially on the cloth, I'm just going to sort of brush rub it with my thumb to take the excess off the high edges. Give me a bit of a three-dimensional effect. Then it's going to get a coat of Croak Green, and hopefully the banner will look something like this. Kind of a little bit ethereal and aged, but nothing too totally off the wall. And I'm going to do the guy's plume in the same colour as well. Tempted to do that purple with it being Shaiish, but I think I will do that the same colour as those to tie those in. Then I can start to get on to all the weathering effects. So this is what it looks like after the 2 thin coats of grey cere as a base, and then 1 coat of Briar Queen Chill. I just now need to let it dry before I can put the Croak Green on. Now, if they all had shields, then by the time I got round to the last shield, the first one would be dried, I could go straight onto it. But as they're not, I need to employ other methods. Okay, dry faster. And after the Croak Green shade, kind of looks like this. A little bit sort of ethereal, a little bit sea swept. I mean, they're not perfect, but at a distance it just looks like an old ghosty type flag, which is what I am going for. So next, before I do the corrosion, I'm going to do Black Legion, just painted neat onto the clothy areas. And then I'm going to do a dab of Frost Heart in each of the eye sockets to make them look as if they're sort of a little bit spooky and animated. So we've got the blue in the eyes, giving them that sort of glowing, animated kind of look. I just put a daub in there, a blob, and then dragged it out with the tip of the brush. Then the robe is just it's just Black Legion all over the robe with a reasonably fine tipped brush just to get the angles right and and from a distance it's starting to come together. Now what I want to do is age that armour. So I'm going to paint Typhus Corrosion in the creases. So anywhere I want it to make it look a bit darker, joins of the armour, that kind of thing. But I'm not going to be too careful. I'm going to be a little bit free and easy with it. And that will add to the, what's the opposite of uniform? The ununiform effect that we will get at the end. Now you can see I've liberally blotched the Typhus Corrosion on the various metal plates. See it there on his helm, on his back plate, shoulder plate, on his secondary weapon. Put a bit on the edge of his blade, even though I'm going to do other stuff with that, but I'll come to that in a minute. And I have not been too careful, and if you look across all of them, there's sort of no uniform type pattern. But now what I'm going to do is take Nilac Oxide and layer it up on top of the, in some places, the corrosion, in other places on other things. So I'll get a contrast of plain armour, just Nilac on the armour, Nilac and corrosion on the armour, and then just corrosion on the armour. Then on top of that, I'm going to be doing Ironbreaker highlights. So there'll be about 4 or 5 or 6 different combinations, which will give it a really sort of like old. Yeah, it'll look really old. Okay, here we go. They have got varying quantities of Nilac Oxide blobbed on them. Some around the sort of around the collar plates, some on the wings. Ooh, trying to look through the camera. Bits on the back plate. I've not been too neat and tidy. They don't need to look super good. They just need to look good from arm's length. Some of them have got heavier on than others. And when I do the Ironbreaker highlights, that should start to tie it all together nicely. Now I'm going to do those last. They are the last thing I'm going to do because I also want to do the Ironbreaker highlights on top of some of the other colours that I have yet to paint, and I only want to open it once. So I'm going to, that's what I'm going to do at last. So the bits that I've still got left to do, using this chap or chapess as an example, I've got to paint the haft of the weapon, which I'm going to paint in Doombull Brown for the wood effect. I've got to paint, oh, I need this guy. I've got to paint the skin of the drum, which I'm going to paint in Rakarth Flesh. Then everything else, leather, so the leather straps around the belt and on the back of the armor plates, and some bits around the drum and so on, they are going to get painted in Steel Legion Drab. So these are my next 3 colours, and then with more precision and more care, I am then going to ink those with Vallejo Black Wash. This shouldn't be Black Wash, this should be the other one. The bottles have got mixed up. Vallejo Umber. No, Vallejo Black. Sorry, I'm looking at my notes. I remembered it wrong, but I wrote it down right. And the reason I'm using Vallejo Black is because the newer brand of Nuln Oil is just too shiny for what I want. And this is the best. This is the closest I've managed to get after some trial and error. So that's the next stage. Wood, skin, leather, shade. So before the inking, we have some quite light wood and relatively light leather straps, and the metal still quite shiny on the weapons. So now, going to go over it with Vallejo Blackwash. Okay, so now I'm waiting for the ink to dry, and those straps and the metal are all dulled down and kind of blend in a bit more to the overall theme of the model. So the only thing left to do from a paint point of view is Ironbreaker. I want to put some highlights on a lot of the different metal pieces, and I want to use it to break up some of the distressing of the metal, try and make a few bits pop, like where it's been chipped and some of the or knocked, and some of the corrosion has flaked off, revealing shiny metal underneath. And here we have the finished thing. So you can see I effectively just used the edge of my brush just to catch the Ironbreaker on the high edges, both on the blades of the weapons, on the tips of the armor, the sticky outy bits of the armor, just to try and create a bit more of that sort of 3D chipped effect. And I am really quite pleased with the result. And then I finished them all off with some tiny alien purple Gamers Grass Tiny Tufts to give them that freshly arrived in Shaiish look, or freshly detombed, decrypted. Anyway, so that's my technique. That's how I've painted them. I also painted this unit of test paints, and I feel inclined to expand it to a small Deathrattle army. So maybe we will see those on the channel in some future battle report. Will probably be quite a while, but who knows. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. I certainly enjoyed making it, and I've just been joined for a hello from Lemmy. Thank you, a big shout out to all my Patreons and channel members for your ongoing support. You guys are awesome, and thank you to GW for sending me these Deathrattle minis to review and paint for your pleasure. And until next time, take care, folks. I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.